July 12, 1979. Chicago. The air inside Comiskey Park was thick with humidity, beer, and a simmering, dangerous rage. Usually people came to this stadium to watch the White Sox play baseball. But on this night, the 50,000 people cramming into the stands, mostly young white men, weren't there for the game. They were there for a riot. They were there to kill a genre of music. The event was called Disco Demolition Night. A local rock DJ named Steve Dahl, who had been fired when his radio station switched to an all-disco format, had rallied an army. The price of admission was 98 cents and a disco record. The plan was simple: pile the records in center field and blow them up. At the center of that pile, hidden among thousands of vinyl discs, was one voice that dominated them all, a voice that had been labeled the Queen, the voice of Donna Summer. When the crate of records was detonated, the explosion blew a hole in the outfield grass. But it did something far worse to the culture. The crowd stormed the field. They tore up the bases. They started bonfires. It wasn't just a protest against bad music. Witnesses later described it as a book burning. It felt hateful. It felt racial. It felt like a public execution of everything that Donna Summer represented: black, gay, glamorous, and free. Donna Summer wasn't in Chicago that night. She was likely thousands of miles away, perhaps in Los Angeles or New York. But she felt the heat of those flames. To the world, Donna Summer was the untouchable goddess of the night. She was the woman who had sold 140 million records. She was the only artist in history to have 3 consecutive double albums hit #1. She had 5 Grammys, 6 American Music Awards, and a fortune that would eventually rival the GDP of a small country. But looking back at that fire in Chicago, we realize that her throne was built on a volcano. For decades, the media painted a simple picture of Donna Summer. They told us she was the first lady of love. They told us she was a sex symbol who whispered erotic fantasies into a microphone to make people dance at Studio 54. They told us she was the soundtrack to the drug-fueled hedonism of the 1970s. But that was a lie. Or at least it was a mask. The woman behind the mask wasn't a hedonist. She was a devout Christian girl from Boston who was terrified of the very image she had created. The woman who sang "Love to Love You, Baby" actually hated the song so much that she once fainted from stress just thinking about performing it. The woman who brought joy to millions was secretly battling a depression so severe that she found herself dangling one leg out of a hotel window, ready to end it all. This script is not just a biography of a pop star. We are not here to just list her hits. We are here to tell the story of a war between LaDonna Adrian Gaines, the church girl who just wanted to sing for God, and Donna Summer, the creature created by the music industry to sell sex to the masses. It is a story about how a bullet to the face in childhood prepared her for the bullets of critics in adulthood. It is a story about how she escaped a cult-like atmosphere in the music industry only to be accused of betraying her most loyal fans. And ultimately, it is a mystery about her death. Was it really cancer from smoking? Or was she, as she believed, a collateral victim of the 9/11 terrorist attacks? Before the fire in Chicago, before the sequins, and before the tragedy, there was just a girl in the housing projects of Boston, a girl with a voice so powerful it could make grown men cry, and a scar on her face that made her believe she was unlovable. To understand the Queen, we have to meet the ugly duckling. Long before the flashing strobe lights of the discotheques, Donna Summer lived in a world of gray concrete and red bricks. She was born LaDonna Adrian Gaines on New Year's Eve, 1948. The setting was the housing projects of Boston, Massachusetts. In the hierarchy of American survival, the projects were the bottom rung. It was a place where families were packed tight, money was scarce, and danger was just part of the weather. Her father, a stoic man, who worked 3 jobs to keep the lights on, ran the house like a fortress. There was no room for vanity, no makeup, no nail polish, and certainly no dreams of Hollywood stardom. They were church people. They lived by the Bible and the belt. But LaDonna carried a wound that no prayer could heal. When she was a toddler, a freak accident involving a sharp object on a chair left her with a distinct jagged scar on her face. In her young mind, that scar was a canyon. She would look in the mirror and see a monster. She called herself the ugly duckling. The neighborhood kids, with the cruelty that only children possess, teased her relentlessly. She grew up believing a lie that would haunt her for decades. You are not beautiful. You are damaged goods. And then the violence escalated from insults to bullets. One afternoon, while walking home from school, the brutality of the streets found her. A group of boys was playing with a gun. It might have been a high-powered cap gun or perhaps a BB gun. The details blur with time, but the impact was real. The weapon fired. The projectile struck LaDonna directly in the face. She survived thanks to her brother, who shielded her and dragged her to safety. Her parents, terrified, moved the family to a different neighborhood, a 3-story house just 10 blocks from where John F. Kennedy once lived. They thought moving up meant moving to safety. They were wrong. Violence in America doesn't respect zip codes. LaDonna tried to find solace in the only place that made sense. The church. It was there at the age of 10 that the ugly duckling discovered she had the voice of a swan. When she stepped up to replace a missing singer one Sunday morning, something supernatural happened. She opened her mouth, and a sound came out that was too big, too painful, and too mature for a little girl. The congregation didn't clap. They wept. People fell to their knees. But even the power of her voice couldn't protect her from what she saw next. In her late teens, LaDonna witnessed something that would shatter her remaining innocence. While on the street, she watched as a local gang attacked an elderly woman. It was a senseless, brutal robbery for a purse. LaDonna stood there frozen as the woman was beaten. The woman died from her injuries. Most people would have run. Most would have stayed silent. But LaDonna, raised on the strict morality of the church, testified. She pointed the finger at the killers. That act of bravery put a target on her back. The death threats started coming. The phone would ring with ominous warnings. The gang knew who she was. The streets of Boston, once her home, had become a prison yard. She was also dealing with the racial tension of the 1960s, getting beaten up in New York simply for walking with white friends, dodging kidnapping attempts. She was suffocating. She needed an escape route. That route appeared in the form of a musical called Hair. The counterculture Broadway show was looking for cast members to travel to Europe, specifically to Germany. It was a terrifying proposition. Germany was a foreign land, a place where her father had served during the war. But compared to the gangs of Boston and the racism of America, Germany looked like paradise. She auditioned. She got the part of Sheila. And just weeks before her high school graduation, LaDonna Adrian Gaines made the most dangerous decision of her life. She dropped out. She packed her bags. She kissed her parents goodbye. She wasn't just leaving for a job. She was running for her life. She boarded a plane to Munich, thinking she would stay for a few months. She had no idea that she wouldn't return for 8 years. And she certainly had no idea that the girl who left Boston as a scared witness to a murder would return as the most seductive woman on the planet. The exile had begun. De la fan 3, Quebec. Tudim ku lualitsu ban tu toi loi, va kebe mangten, biutung sex. Fong kat kitin di sova noitam janvat. So to be tonder tu. Part 3. The Accidental Sinner and the 17-minute moan. Germany was freedom. But it was also a mask. In Munich, LaDonna could be anyone she wanted. She learned to speak German fluently. She married an Austrian actor named Helmut Summer. She had a daughter, Mimi. Even after the marriage crumbled, she kept the name. Summer became Summer. LaDonna Gaines was dead. Donna Summer was born. But in 1974, she walked into a recording studio that looked less like a place for music and more like a laboratory. She was there to meet two men, Pete Bellotte and a mustache-wielding visionary named Giorgio Moroder. They weren't making soul music. They weren't making rock. They were building something cold, robotic, and hypnotic using synthesizers. They called it the Munich machine. At first, Donna was just a backup singer, a hired gun with a powerful voice. But one day she hummed a melody for them. It was soft. It was breathy. It was repetitive. The lyrics were barely there. Love to love you, baby. Donna intended it to be a demo for another artist. Remember, this was a woman who grew up singing hymns. The idea of singing a song about sexual ecstasy was repulsive to her. It went against every lesson her father had taught her. It went against the Bible. But Moroder heard something else. He heard the future. He convinced her to step into the vocal booth. Just try it, he urged. Pretend you are someone else. So she did. She closed her eyes. She turned off the lights. She imagined she was Marilyn Monroe. She wasn't Donna anymore. She was an actress playing the role of a seductress. She whispered. She sighed. She let the microphone pick up every intake of breath. When she walked out of that booth, she thought she had just done a silly favor. She didn't know she had just signed a deal with the devil of fame. Moroder sent the tape to Hollywood. Specifically to the desk of Neil Bogart, the head of Casablanca Records. Bogart was a madman, a gambler who ran his record label like a circus. He played the song at a private party in his mansion. The reaction was immediate and primal. The guests stopped talking. The room temperature seemed to rise. When the 3-minute song ended, they begged him to play it again. Bogart called Germany in the middle of the night. "I need more," he screamed. 3 minutes isn't enough. Make it last all night. Make it 17 minutes long." Donna returned to the studio. They stretched the track, and in that 17-minute extended version, the press later gleefully counted that Donna simulated an orgasm 22 times. Love to Love You, Baby didn't just climb the charts. It detonated. Time magazine called it a marathon of moaning. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame would later list it as one of the 500 songs that shaped music history. But for Donna, the success felt like a curse. She returned to America not as a respected vocalist, but as the First Lady of Love. The Casablanca Records marketed her like a high-end prostitute. The album covers featured her in provocative poses. The radio played her intimate size to millions of strangers. And then the backlash began. It was swift and vicious. The BBC in London banned the song, calling it indecent. In America, Reverend Jesse Jackson and his organization Operation Push denounced her. They claimed she was polluting the minds of the youth, encouraging promiscuity and teen pregnancy. Imagine the shame of the church girl from Boston. Her parents had to listen to preachers condemn their daughter from the pulpit. But the most dangerous threat didn't come from preachers. It came from the fans. Because Donna was tall, statuesque, and had an aura of mystery. A cruel rumor began to spread through the underground clubs. Donna Summer is a man. People whispered that she was a transvestite. They analyzed her hands, her jawline, her height. It was a grotesque invasion of privacy. Donna would sit in interviews terrified, watching reporters stare at her throat, looking for an Adam's apple. The ugly duckling trauma from her childhood came rushing back. She felt like a freak in a sideshow. And then the lust turned violent. During a concert in Italy, Donna performed under a massive tent for 5,000 people. The crowd was almost entirely male. As the opening notes of Love to Love You Baby began, a strange energy rippled through the audience. It wasn't applause. It was hunger. The men stormed the stage. They tore down the barriers. They weren't there to hear a song. They were there to claim the woman who promised them 22 orgasms. Security collapsed. Donna had to be rushed off stage, shoved into a trailer, while the mob rocked it back and forth trying to break in. Huddled in that trailer, shaking with fear, Donna Summer realized the terrifying truth. The character she played had become a monster, and the monster was coming to eat her alive. She was trapped, and the only way to survive was to keep dancing. By 1908, Donna Summer was the queen of a kingdom that was slowly burning to the ground. The epicenter of her reign was a converted TV studio on 54th Street in Manhattan, Studio 54. To the cameras, Studio 54 was the peak of civilization. It was Bianca Jagger riding a white horse. It was Andy Warhol holding court. It was glitter glamour and exclusivity. But to Donna Summer, it was a zoo. She described the atmosphere inside not as a party, but as a desperate countdown. The air reeked of expensive perfume sweat and amyl nitrate. In the bathrooms and on the balconies, the elites of New York were consuming mountains of cocaine and Quaaludes. There were open orgies in the basement. Donna later said that people partied with such ferocity because they genuinely believed the world was going to end in the year 2000. They were dancing on the edge of the apocalypse, trying to numb themselves before the clock ran out. And the person providing the soundtrack for this mass delusion was Donna. But while the DJ played I Feel Love, the woman singing it was dying inside. The sex goddess persona was a prison. She was working 20-hour days. She was dragged from photo shoots to interviews to concerts. She had bodyguards shadowing her every move because of the stalkers. One famous actor whose name she took to her grave became obsessed with her, terrifying her with his unwanted advances. But the real torture was the silence. When the music stopped and the bodyguards went home, Donna was alone in empty hotel rooms. Her daughter Mimi was miles away, a casualty of a custody battle with her ex-husband. The guilt of being an absent mother was a cancer eating away at her soul. She couldn't sleep. Her mind was a racing engine that wouldn't shut off. She went to doctors begging for relief. They gave her the standard Hollywood solution, Valium. They told her it would help her relax. Instead, it turned her into a ghost. She described walking through life in a gray fog. She would smile on American Bandstand joke with Dick Clark and look radiant. But behind her eyes, there was nothing. She was a zombie in a sequined dress. The breaking point didn't happen in a club. It happened in the terrifying quiet of the Sherry Netherland Hotel in New York City. It was a Tuesday, or maybe a Wednesday. Time didn't matter anymore. Donna was in her suite staring at the expensive wallpaper. The maid was cleaning in the other room. The world outside was bustling. Suddenly, a thought entered her mind. It wasn't a voice. It was a command. It's time to go. She didn't write a note. She didn't call her mother. She simply stood up and walked toward the window. She was on a high floor. Below her, Central Park looked like a green patch on a gray quilt. The cars looked like toys. The drop was lethal. Donna opened the window. The wind whipped her hair, the hair that millions of women tried to copy. She wasn't crying. She was numb. She lifted one leg and placed it over the sill. Then she shifted her weight. She was ready to let go. She was ready to become a tragic headline in the next morning's paper. Disco Queen, dead at 30. But God or fate or pure luck had put an obstacle in her way. In front of the window there was an old metal radiator. Covering it was a heavy, thick curtain. As Donna tried to swing her other leg out, her foot got tangled in the fabric. She stumbled. She caught herself on the ledge. For a split second, she struggled with the curtain, fighting to untangle herself so she could die. At that exact moment, the door handle turned. The maid walked in. She was holding fresh towels. She looked up and saw the most famous woman in the world, half in and half out of a window, tangled in the drapes. The maid gasped. Donna froze. Their eyes locked. In that mundane, awkward second of eye contact, the spell was broken. The absurdity of the situation, the towels, the radiator, the clumsiness of it all, snapped Donna back to reality. She pulled herself back inside. She sat on the floor, shaking. The maid likely didn't know. She had just saved a life. She just did her job and left. But for Donna, the message was clear. The darkness had almost won. The drugs, the fame, the persona, it was all poison. She realized she had two choices. She could jump or she could pray. She chose to pray. She called her sister. She flushed the Valium down the toilet. She fell to her knees and found the God she had left behind in Boston. She became a born-again Christian. But while Donna was saving her soul, the world was preparing to destroy her career. She had survived the window, but she was about to face a fire that no amount of prayer could extinguish. Donna Summer had survived her own mind, but she was about to face a war she couldn't win. The year was 1970. The mood in America had shifted. The disco Demolition night in Chicago wasn't just a riot. It was a signal. The phrase "disco sucks" began to appear on bumper stickers and t-shirts across the country. The industry panicked. Record labels started dropping disco artists like they were contagious. They scrubbed the word disco from their vocabulary, rebranding it as dance music just to survive. Donna saw the writing on the wall. She knew she had to evolve, or she would die with the genre. But first, she had to break her chains. She was still under contract with Casablanca Records, the label that had worked her to the point of suicide. She was exhausted. She was being managed by the label owner's wife, a conflict of interest so blatant it was insulting. So Donna did something unprecedented. She sued them. She slapped a $10 million lawsuit on the people who made her a star. It was a brutal legal battle, but she won. She became the first artist to sign with David Geffen's new label, Geffen Records. She was free. But freedom came with a terrible price. In the early 1980s, as Donna embraced her newfound Christian faith, a rumor began to circulate. It started as a whisper in the gay clubs of New York and San Francisco. Then it became a roar. New York Magazine published an article claiming that during a concert, Donna had stopped the music to preach. They alleged, she said, God made Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. Even worse, as the AIDS epidemic began to ravage the community, the rumor claimed, she said, AIDS was God's punishment for homosexuality. The backlash was nuclear. The gay community wasn't just a fan base. They were her family. They were the ones who danced to her music when radio stations wouldn't play it. Now they felt betrayed by their queen. DJs broke her records on air. Protesters picketed her concerts holding signs that read, Donna Summer eels bigot. Donna was devastated. She cried in interviews. She sued the magazine for libel, demanding $30 million for the lies. She swore on her life that she never said those words, that she had lost friends to AIDS and would never judge them. But the damage was done. The Adam and Steve quote became an urban legend that stuck to her like tar. She had found God, but she had lost her people. She was now a queen without a kingdom. Her records weren't selling like before. The critics said she was washed up. They said the 80s didn't have room for a 70s disco star. She needed a miracle. And strangely, that miracle appeared in a bathroom in Los Angeles. It was in '83. To settle her legal debts with Casablanca, she owed them one last album. She didn't want to do it. She wanted to give her best music to her new label. But a deal was a deal. One night at a glitzy Grammy party, Donna walked into the ladies' room. Sitting in the corner was a bathroom attendant named Onetta. The woman was asleep in her chair, head bowed, exhausted from cleaning up after rich celebrities. Donna looked at her. She didn't see a servant. She saw herself. She saw her mother. She saw every woman who breaks her back just to survive. She grabbed a piece of toilet paper. She took out a pen. And right there, next to the sinks and the mirrors, she wrote the lyrics that would save her career. Donna Summer handed the lyrics written on toilet paper to the producers at Casablanca Records. She thought she was just paying a debt. She didn't know she was handing them a weapon. When She Works Hard for the Money dropped in 1983, it hit the culture like a sledgehammer. It wasn't a song about sex. It wasn't about drugs. It was about dignity. The music video featured Donna not as a goddess in sequins, but as a waitress in a diner, exhausted, dropping plates, and fighting to keep her head up. For the first time, the Queen looked like us, David Geffen. Her new boss watched in horror as the song he let slip away rocketed up the charts. It went #1 on the R&B charts, but its real victory was on the television screen. At that time, MTV was a segregated country club. Michael Jackson had just kicked the door open for black men, but black women were still waiting outside. She Works Hard for the Money changed the rules. It became the first video by an African-American female artist to be placed in heavy rotation. Donna Summer had done it again. She had forced the world to look at a black woman and see a hero, not a stereotype. With the lawsuit behind her and her name cleared, Donna did something unexpected. She stepped back. She realized that the character of Donna Summer was exhausting to play. She wanted to be LaDonna again. She found stability in the arms of Bruce Sudano, a singer-songwriter who loved the woman, not the fame. They built a life that was shockingly normal. They moved to a farm. They raised chickens. They raised their daughters, Brooklyn, Nawe, and Amanda, far away from the toxic fumes of Hollywood. Donna also went back to finish what she started. In 1983, the woman with 5 Grammys put on a cap and gown and returned to Boston to finally receive her high school diploma. She showed the world that education mattered more than platinum records. She discovered a new talent, painting. And she wasn't just a hobbyist. Her art, vibrant, abstract, and emotional, sold for thousands. One piece even fetched $39,000. For 2 decades, silence fell over the Queen. She popped up occasionally on the sitcom Family Matters, at a Nobel Peace Prize concert for Barack Obama. But mostly, she was content. The demons of depression seemed to be gone. The stalkers were gone. The drugs were a distant memory. She thought she had survived the war. She thought she would grow old on her farm painting sunsets. But history had one final cruel twist waiting for her. In 2001, Donna was spending time in her apartment in New York City. The date was September 11th. When the planes hit the Twin Towers, the world changed forever. But for Donna, the terror was physical. She was close to ground zero. As the towers collapsed, a massive cloud of toxic dust, asbestos, and debris swallowed Lower Manhattan. Donna stood on her balcony or near her window, watching the apocalypse. She breathed in the air, and in her mind, in that terrifying moment, she believed she felt something settle deep inside her lungs. She told her husband later, "I felt it. I felt the evil enter me." For the last decade of her life, Donna Summer lived with a ghost. After the terror of September 11th, 2001, the woman who once commanded stadiums became a recluse. The depression that she had fought off in the 70s returned with a vengeance. She rarely left her house. She became obsessed with the air she breathed. She told her family with absolute conviction that the toxic dust cloud from the Twin Towers had poisoned her. She believed the asbestos and the debris were ticking time bombs inside her chest. Whether it was paranoia or a premonition, she was right about one thing. Something was killing her. She kept her battle a secret. The public saw a woman who was aging gracefully, still sounding like an angel. But behind the gates of her home in Naples, Florida, she was fighting lung cancer. On May 17, 2012, the music stopped. News broke that Donna Summer had died at the age of 63. The world was stunned. How could the queen of disco, a woman who didn't smoke in her later years, die of a smoker's disease? Donna went to her grave believing she was a victim of 9/11. But medical experts like Dr. Michael Hunter pointed to a more tragic, inescapable truth. It wasn't just the dust. It was the summer curse. It was the years of inhaling secondhand smoke in the clubs of the 70s. It was her own smoking habit from her youth. But mostly, it was genetics. Her mother died of lung cancer. Her younger sister died of lung cancer. The queen didn't lose a battle with terror. She lost a battle with her own DNA. She left behind a fortune of $75 million. And sadly, as often happens, the silence of grief was briefly broken by the noise of money. Tabloids reported conflicts between her daughters over the estate. But in the end, the money didn't matter. The only thing that mattered was the victory. Remember Comiskey Park? Remember the 50,000 men who blew up her records in 1979? They tried to erase her. They tried to tell the world that disco was dead and that Donna Summer was a joke. They failed. In 2013, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame finally opened its doors to her. The Library of Congress locked her voice into the National Registry forever. Conclusion. The story of Donna Summer is not a tragedy like Christophe St. John's. It is a war movie. She was a soldier who fought on every front. She fought the poverty of Boston. She fought the predators of the music industry. She fought the racism of the radio stations. She fought the depression in her own mind. And she won. They called her the Queen of Disco, but that title was too small. She was the architect of modern pop. Every time you hear Beyoncé, every time you hear a synthesizer on the radio, every time you see a woman controlling her own destiny in the music business, you are looking at the legacy of the girl with the scar on her face. The fire in Chicago burned her records, but it couldn't burn her spirit. Rest in power, Donna. The last dance belongs to you.